Hello YouTube, it's StephenWorldwide doing a video blog about my story and how I made over $5,000 a month teaching English in Korea. I got up to 6 million won in Korean money, and that converts to about 5,500, something like that, 5,600. Alright, so here's my story and here's how I did it, and I'm telling you this because I want to help teachers with ideas of how they can make a lot of money in South Korea too. And I'm not bragging about all this, I'm trying to tell you what's possible. There's a couple things before I get into this video that you should know. The first one is, a lot of this stuff is not completely legal. It's going outside of the law. And if doing everything legal, if not going outside of the law is very important to you, then you could just watch this and enjoy it. But you don't have to do any of this stuff, obviously, or just stop watching the video because it's not going to help you. If you want to do everything legal, you stay at the school you work and you don't work anywhere else. And best of luck to you to find a job that pays well. Something flew in my ear. Pardon me. Alright, so this was what I did. This is how I did it. If you watched my last video, I talked about after-school English. And the reason why after-school English was such a great job is because the hours were so short. So I can go in at 12:30 and be done by 5:30. And some days I was done at 4:30 on some days. So when you have a full-time job where you get full-time pay, but you only work 2 or 3 hours a day at the school, then you are set up to make a lot of money. How do you do that? Basically with private teaching. I talked to a lot of teachers. I tried to give a lot of teachers over the years private teaching jobs. Either they didn't suit my schedule, or I had too many students. And a lot of teachers were saying, well, I don't know how to do that. I've never had private teachers before. I've never done private teaching before. Bringing my umbrella today because it looks like rain. Report says it'll rain around 6, which is when I get out, so I don't have to walk home in the rain. Hopefully. Let me clean a smudge on the lens. Okay. Alright, a lot of teachers say, how do you do that? How do you teach privately? Real quick, real basic, how you teach privately. The system that I set up was you find a good textbook for not, you're going to teach different levels. When you teach children between 6, 7 years old all the way up to 13 years old, I would suggest one textbook that works for elementary school kids. And it'll start off with the alphabet ABC, but it shouldn't start off so easy. It'll start off with ABC and then have vocabulary words. And if you have a beginning student, that's fine to start with them. If you have a student that is already familiar with the alphabet and some simple vocabulary, then you just kind of skip the first chapter, or you adapt it to be a little bit more challenging for them, or contextual. So you find a textbook that is not expensive, a textbook that's like 20 bucks, with or without a CD, and it's available online that the parents can order real easily, or you buy them and then you sell them. And then just bring a textbook with you, or what I did was the student has the textbook, so you just show up at the private teaching appointment. They got the book already, and you help them get through the book and practice the English with them and teach that way. That way, number one, you don't have to carry a lot of books with you when you go out and you do it. And then number two, you don't have to prepare a whole lot for these private lessons. If it's just one-on-one, If you're going into a lesson that's 3 or 4 students and it's a private lesson, then you want to prepare something, because they might be at different levels, or it takes a little bit more when you're teaching a group rather than one-on-one getting it done. All right, that's just really quick, like how do you do private lessons, but there's a lot more to it that I'll explain now. So I had a lot of free time after I was done at my job, when I was done at 4:30 or 5:30. And the next question you will ask is, how did you get private teaching? How did you find it? I have to be really close to the side of the road here so I don't get clipped by one of these cars. It's rush hour. But this area I live in is not a busy area. So even though you see cars flying by, this is actually nothing compared to what it's like in a busy area. It would just be non-stop. Bikes and cars and people everywhere. Chaos. Here is the difficult part for you, to build yourself a schedule where you can make that much money. What you need to do is you need to meet, and this was my trick, this was my secret, and these things just happened to me gradually. But after they happened, I realized that this is kind of a system. And here I am sharing my system for free on my YouTube blog. You need to meet Korean English teachers. And you need to meet ones that have been doing it for years. And you need to get out of Seoul. Because in Seoul, the competition is so... You could do it in Seoul, but I think it's a little bit harder. You need to get out of the big cities, and you need to get to the surrounding cities. What I call suburbs, even though they don't call them suburbs over there. All right, let me cross the street here. You need to find and befriend Korean English teachers, because their job is teaching English to Koreans, and they speak to parents. They know lots of parents and students. And when you're a foreigner that is an English teacher, you're a commodity that is in high demand. And these teachers connect you to the parents. That's basically it. And I met a number of them the past few years, my last few years I was in Korea. And how did I meet them? I met them on some social media apps. Just wanted to chat with people and meet people, and some of them found me or I found them. And their job is an English teacher. They live near me. And some of them just said, do you have time? Because I have parents that want to give their kids private lessons. And I said, sure, I'm done at basically 5:30. So I would do lessons from 6. There's that corner. There's the dangerous corner. Somebody just every day somebody zips by me when I walk by. It's got to be a coincidence. Strange coincidence. Yeah, so I would teach from 6 till about 9:30 at night. And you might say, well, you're teaching during the day, you're teaching at night. When I had a full schedule, I was teaching 7 hours a day. And to me, it's not that hard to me. Teaching in school is hard when you have a class full of kids, but teaching one-on-one, it's a dream, because you have this really nice student sitting with you, and they're usually well-behaved. And you take a break during the hour. The mom usually brings you snacks like fruit or some tea or coffee or whatever. And it's a real relaxing hour where you can teach English to 1 or 2 students. I really enjoyed it. The kids were so cute and so nice. So it was a great experience. So to me, it wasn't hard. And when you work anywhere between 6 to 8 hours a day, and you're averaging $40 an hour, that's where the money starts piling up. So, as you know, just really quickly, legally, if you have an E2 visa, You're only supposed to work at your school. And if you work anywhere else, which I did, I worked at another school, and I did this, the school has to take you to immigration and get a permission and a sticker. I think they put the sticker in your passport that you're allowed to teach at another school. It's been approved. And then you have to do everything the same. You have to get the medical test. You have to make sure you're enrolled in the tax and the social welfare program. And it's basically you do all the same for each school that you work for. But legally, you can get permission and do that. You have to pay visa fees, the fees at the immigration. And my advice to you is make sure you get the school to agree to pay for the fees, because it's $100 to $150 a pop. All right. So that's basically it. You get a job that does not require you to be there for a long time, maybe just 4 hours a day. Now the problem is the money-making time is between 1 and 9 p.m. during the day. You're generally not making money teaching English in the mornings. That only happens if you work at a kindergarten or if you have a public school job or a university job or any of these jobs where you have to go to a school and get a visa for that, an E2 visa. So your money-making time is between noon or 1 and 9, or maybe even 10 for older students. That's when you need to maximize. You need to maximize what you make per hour. All this information is whizzing by in my head, and I cannot organize it, tell you everything I need to tell you. I hope I don't forget anything. You must have questions. You got to put them in the comments if I miss anything. Just watch the whole video and maybe I'll address it. All right, there's some aspects to this I'm not telling you, and I just have to be honest about this. Well, first of all, if you have an F visa, or this is a good reason to earn your F visa, because if you have an F visa, you can basically do all this stuff legally. If you don't have an F visa, if you have the E2 visa, then it's not really legal. But they don't really crack down. They don't really follow you around. You know, how are they going to know where you're going, what apartments you're going? Are they going to see you in a coffee shop with books, studying with somebody? The excuse is that you're just volunteering. You're teaching English for free because you're not handing cash over to each other in public. All right, the other thing I'm not mentioning is this. Part of my success is my personality. You could be a good English teacher, but if you're boring as shit, if you don't smile, if you're not friendly, if you're not sociable, you're not going to get out there and you're not going to be desirable. I got hired a lot of times. Parents paid me a lot of money because they liked me. And they wanted their kid to spend time sitting with me and speaking English. And the other thing is that I look the part. I made a video about the racism in English teaching. I just made that last week, so I don't have to go over that again. But it's no secret that in Korean society, and maybe the same in Japan, I'm new here, so I don't know exactly for sure, but I suspect it's similar. They expect an English teacher to be a Western white person. So I look the part, even though I'm a little bit older than what you would expect an English teacher to be. They want teachers in their 20s and 30s, and I'm not there anymore. It's my personality. They like me as a person, and I know this because when I left Korea and I tried to give all my students replacements, a replacement teacher, they didn't call. They were just done with private lessons because I was leaving. They just stopped doing it. And I was surprised. I thought it was about learning English. It was partly that. The other part was they liked me. So you need to, it's easier if you look the part, but I think you definitely need to be friendly and somebody that is just, you have a good personality. You're sociable. The other thing you might wonder is, do you need to speak Korean? Speaking Korean helps. And the parents, they barely speak English. They don't remember much from what they learned in high school. So speaking a little bit of Korean helps. You need to have a couple close Korean friends that will translate for you and set up the lessons. And that is like the Korean teacher I mentioned to you. They're the ones that will talk to the parents. They will set up the times. They will tell the parents what books to order and what's going to happen and how to pay you and all that kind of stuff. The crows here, or the ravens, what's the difference between a crow and a raven? I don't know, but they're huge. They're like the size of cats. And they're loud too. All right. What else about this am I missing? Some other ways that I got privates. I made signs that were both in English and in Korean. Like half of a A4 slip of paper. And I would post them around in coffee shops. I would get permission. I would post them on coffee shops, bulletin boards at apartments. You can pay to, a lot of these bulletin boards will tear down your ad because they always want you to pay to put your bulletin there because they get a lot of garbage, a lot of I don't know if you call it spam, a lot of advertising that they just want to, they'll pull it down if you do that without permission. And other English teachers that will come by and pull down your ads. I did that. And my advice for you is you don't even need English. You can just post it all in Korean because parents can't read English anyway. They want to see some English, so put some English on there. Or just look at an ad from any other Hak1, and you'll notice it's all in Korean except they'll have a picture of a foreigner or some foreign kids in a classroom raising their hand, and it'll say English, and that's it. Have your contact information, and they'll send you a text message in Korean. And I would do basic Korean back with them or use a translator, but the Korean language is so difficult that translators often get it wrong because they don't know honorifics. So if you put in something like, "Hi, I'm an English teacher, nice to meet you. Would you like some English lessons?" and you send it to them through a translator, it comes off as being like you're talking to like your little sister, or it's informal language and it looks bad. So you can get them in touch with one of your Korean friends. Let me sit down. Just basically get a Korean friend or a Korean teacher to get in touch with that person and translate back and forth with them. It's a little bit annoying, but that's part of the deal. So what I did the last 2 years was I filled my schedule with English teaching. Starting at 11 in the morning was the earliest I got. And you find a place that you live near that is comfortable to go to sit down and study. So if you don't go to the person's apartment, then you go to like a quiet coffee shop somewhere. Or you can set up your apartment with a table and just set it up as a comfortable place for students to come and sit down, either 3, 2, or 1 student to study with you. I didn't do that. I found a coffee shop that had a small room in the back that was used for calligraphy, art, coffee making. It was like a coffee teaching. It was teaching how to brew coffee. A coffee shop. And the lady in there, like, I was always nice to her, but I didn't talk to her for months. I had another student that I would meet and teach there. And then one day I said, you know what? I told my student, why don't you tell the coffee shop owner that if they know anybody that wants to have English lessons, since she has this classroom here, let her know. When he did that, I got her son, her friend's daughter, sitting together doing a lesson for me, and they were paying 40 a piece. I got 70 for 1 hour, 70 or 80 for 1 hour for teaching both of them. And they got a textbook that was for an older, like middle-aged student. Sorry, middle school-aged student. And then the mom, the coffee shop owner, she paid me $50 an hour to sit with me and to learn English. She didn't speak a word of English. And I always ask my students, whatever it is that you want with English, I'll help you with. And I asked her that, and she said she just wants to sit with me for an hour. And we sat there for an hour and just kind of struggled through a conversation. We wrote notes down to each other. We used translators. She had magazines about making coffee. I brought in magazines in English about stuff that she would be interested in, like art and Korean culture stuff that was in English. And she paid me $50 an hour just to hang out with her. And she served me the most delicious coffee that she would brew right in front of me. So it's who you know. You got to meet people. You can do it on your own, like I did, where I put signs up. I walked into coffee shops and I asked people if they wanted a private English tutor. Or the best thing is to get Korean teachers that teach English. I met, and this is a very rare case, and this is very hard to do. I met an owner of a private school, of a hagwon, that asked me to stay an extra year. Asked me to stay last year. And that's why I didn't come to Japan earlier. And asked me to stay and teach at her school, and told me that she can get me an E2 visa on a part-time basis. And I think most people don't realize you can do this. And here's another big trick of the trade, a big secret. When a school hires you and gives you an E2 visa, they want to work you to the bone. They want you to put in, on the contract says 30 hours a week. And if you only teach 15 hours a week, then that's great, you're lucky. You can get an E2 visa with a contract that says 15 hours a week, but you don't have to work that much if the hagwon boss doesn't want it. So this hagwon boss hired me for 2 nights a week. That's 4 hours times 2. That's 8 hours a week, and I had an E2 visa for that. And they gave me a contract that said 15 hours on it, but I didn't work all those hours. Most schools won't go through the trouble of getting you and paying for getting you that visa just so that you can work a few hours a week. But you can find that. Now that you know it's legal, you can go out there and possibly go into private schools and offer to work there part-time if they would sponsor an E2 visa for you. And that is another thing. Once you get an E2 visa and you're only working 1 or 2 nights a week, you know, the world is your oyster. And you can make a lot of money. And that's what I did. And this teacher helped me get other jobs because they know other owners of other schools that don't have an English teacher. And they'll say, you know, the English teacher is expensive full-time, but how would you like to pay this teacher like 40,000 won an hour? 30, 40, or 50 won an hour is reasonable. And only on a part-time basis, once or twice a week. And most of them will say yes, because they don't have to spend a ton of money every day for you. So I was able to get 3 different hagwons and fill up my Monday through Friday with 4 hours a day at a school. And then before and after that, I would have adult private teaching or student private teaching where I would go to their apartment or I would go to their place of work, and they would have like an hour and a half lunch break or an hour lunch break, and they would eat in a half hour and then spend another, I guess it was an hour and a half. They spent an hour lesson with me, but they were still able to eat lunch. So, and ask for referrals. Ask your students to talk to anybody they know to see if they want to have English lessons with you. And if they like you, they'll do that. And when I started asking people for referrals is when I started to fill up my schedule. And I got to a point where I was busy every day from 11 to 9:30 at night. And I had a motorcycle. I was cruising around from each different location, making anywhere between 40 and 80 bucks an hour. How do you make 80 bucks an hour? When you put 3 students together and they're paying anywhere from 20 to 40 an hour, it gets up there. So that's basically how you do it. And it's, of course, it's not completely legal, but if you live outside the city, especially if you live outside, if you're in a busy area in Seoul, then, you know, there might be, who knows, immigration officers following foreigners around if they suspect that you might be doing that. But I think in the countryside and cities outside of the big city, I don't think you have to worry that much about it. Will parents report you? parents never even asked me about my visa status. And if parents like you, they don't even think about calling immigration about it. You know, they want your help. They're asking, you know, for your service. What else about this? Yeah, I did this for 2 years, and you could do the math. It was like $1,500 a week, something like that. I was making when I had a full schedule, and it was awesome. Ideally, you want to get a place where students will come to you so you don't have to do all the running around that I did. And I just thought to myself when I was doing it, man, this is like, a lot of people can't do this. They'll teach 2 hours at one Hakwan, jump on a motorcycle, race 15-20 minutes across town to another school, then race to somebody's house, and if it was snowing or raining, you hop on a bus, but the bus might be late, so you got to pay for a taxi, but the taxi's only $5 to get across town. And I just thought to myself, not a lot of people can do this, but you know, when the going is good, when you're able to make that money, I hustle. You know, I work, I run around and I make it happen, because there's times in my life where I was miserable at my job, and I wasn't making any money, and I was thinking to myself, God, what am I going to do with my life? I don't like this job. I'm not making any money. I don't have any prospects. I'm kind of in the dumps. What am I going to do? And then you fast forward 6-7 years later, I'm racing around on a motorcycle to people's houses that love me and love throwing money at me to spend time speaking English with them. And it was just it was an awesome time. I always wanted to work at university. And when I got the chance to work at university, I took it, and here I am in Japan teaching university. I thought that Japan was hard to get into, and I thought it was very lucky that I found a university teaching job in Japan, and that's why I'm here. So I think, like I said, I think anybody can teach privately in Korea, and the trick is how to get the jobs, how to develop your own system that works, and that's how I did it. So I hope that this is helpful to you. I hope that I gave you some ideas of things that you can do to make a lot of money in Korea. English teachers are in high demand because the culture really favors foreigners to teach English. And this is a topic for another video. Why is it so important to have a foreigner? Because they think that proper pronunciation with English is so important, and they want their kids to have that, even though they're almost never going to use their English. They might travel a few times in their life. They would just need broken English to ask for directions, or they can speak to foreigners while they're traveling using broken English, but to them, they will pay a ton of money to have somebody who speaks English clearly and easily. They'll spend a lot of money to educate their kids. So hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sure I missed some stuff. I might make a supplement video to this if I missed anything. Ask questions in the comments as the years go by and people find this video years down the road. I don't know if the laws will change. I don't know what will be different, but that was basically my story for the past 2 years. That was what I was doing. I was living cheaply in my cheap $320 apartment that was in the countryside. And a lot of teachers would snicker at me for not living in Seoul, but little did they know I was making almost $6 grand a month, and my expenses were way down, while they were just making, you know, $2,500 a month. So that's what's possible. That's what I want you to know, is that that's what is possible in Korea. And now I'm in Japan. Who knows? I might build something up like that in Japan. Who knows? I just got here a month ago. We'll see. All right. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you like what I'm talking about, subscribe. Hit the like button on the video. There's a little bell that will remind you. If you click on the bell, it'll remind you when I upload a new video. Have a great day. See you in the next one.